and welcome to the Comedian's Paradise. This is the podcast where we speak to amazing, adventurous, Shakespearean comedians from across the comedy world. Now, today's guest is Alvin Liu. He he flew all the way from Shanghai, where they had that great film with Owen Wilson and Jackie Chan,
Yeah,
to the UK, and he's now taking the comedy world by storm. He is conquering all gong shows and saying, "Yo, I am conquering you like a bitch," and he brings his unique flair of comedy that he honed in Shanghai, and he is decorating the UK scene with his jokes with fantastic seasoning. Please welcome Alvin Liu.
hello. It's good to be here.
Thanks for coming here, man. And
Prepare a speech.
how are you finding the fantastic English food as opposed to the food in China, which is better? English food is crap, we know.
I'm trying to think of English food. Just it's fish and chips and English breakfast, maybe.
Yeah,
But the food culture here is really shit. Can I cuss?
yes, yes.
Yeah. Just I have colleagues, my colleagues, right? They would eat lunch every day at 1 p.m. and just have a cold sandwich on their desk. It's really different because in China we make a big deal out of lunch and we go out and we have like warm food, delicious food. But here, yeah, just salad and sandwich.
Oh, you actually what? You actually go in for what is it, like a couple of hours to break, or is it an hour? Or
Yeah, usually it's like a 1 hour lunch break. We just go to a restaurant or order in. But the food delivery industry in China is huge, so it's cheap and it's fast, and you can have like a 3 course, 4 course meal
for
in
lunch?
20 minutes. Yeah.
Oh God, is the food tastier? Because I know that I've been to different parts of the world and tried Chinese food, and the English Chinese food isn't too bad, but it's obviously not as good as like I hear the Chinese food in Hong Kong is the best.
Yeah, I love food in Hong Kong. Here, the Chinese food here is good, but I can never tell the difference between one restaurant to another. They just taste kind of, it's not amazing, but it's not bad. And yeah,
It's mostly, is it one thing I've figured out is I went to a Cambridge restaurant and it's from a different part of China, and it was almost like they had a lot of the same ingredients, but the style was completely different.
yeah,
And most of the Chinese food in here, from what I see, is sort of Cantonese and sometimes Malaysian Chinese.
yeah, I think so. Cantonese, Fujian. Have you tried Hainan chicken? I think that's the
I've tried Hainanese chicken rice. Yeah, it's not too
yeah.
bad.
I think that's the dish people think about when they think of Hainan.
Ah, okay, okay. It's not too bad. It's all right. I got it from a Malaysian vendor though, so I don't know what to make of it.
Ah,
And I
okay.
learned it through Uncle Roger and
Oh,
his video in the yeah, Hainanese chicken rice, and then I remembered it. I thought I'll give it a go.
yeah. It's kind of I feel Hainan chicken is kind of hard to eat because there's always some tiny, tiny bones
Oh,
in those chicken. I mean, it's delicious. The skin is very yellow compared to like some other chicken. But yeah, it's good. Just I feel the bones is too complicated.
yeah, I don't like that either. And what about the chicken feet? Chicken feet.
Chicken feet. Okay, I have mixed feelings about chicken. I think I draw the line when I see the nails. Like I can
Ah,
eat it if they handle it well, and it's actually quite good. And if it's easier, if it's easy to eat. But if I see the nail, I can't do it.
I like the skin in the chicken feet though. When
Yeah,
when it's brown, it's really nice.
yeah, like in those Cantonese restaurants,
Yeah,
like the dim sum.
I've not had it in dim sum. The what dim sum chicken feet.
Uh, I think it comes like you can order. It's probably in the dim sum section, so you can order like shrimp dumpling, uh, chicken feet, and they just serve in those like tiny, tiny. It's not a plate, like a
Oh yeah, yeah. See.
bambooish container.
I do like crispy seaweed as well. That's quite nice. And I like to have crab soup, sometimes
Yeah,
sweet corn soup, but wonton's my favorite.
nice. I miss Chinese breakfast here. I don't see that a lot. Um, yeah, like wonton soup. What's that? Soy milk and I haven't said a lot of these words in English before. Soy milk and uh,
Oh,
chorizo, the Chinese chorizo.
oh, I've not heard of that.
Hmm.
There's the really good yeah, there's a really lovely place in Wing Yip, and I like to get those soya milk bottles. They're so much better than like the soya milk you get in a regular shop here.
Yeah. What's your favorite Chinese restaurant here?
Oh, because this has sort of been indoctrinated me in a child. We used to go there a lot because it's Four Seasons in the UK is well renowned for its duck and
Oh,
Bayswater. So I often, my favorite place to go is there, or there's this Chinese restaurant in Wing Yip, which is in Croydon, which is really nice.
okay.
Uh, yeah, um,
So yeah, duck, Beijing duck in Four Seasons. And what's the second one?
Wing Yip. So it's a huge. It's got branches across the whole of the UK, but it's got really delicious restaurant.
How do you spell it?
Uh,
Ah, okay. When you
it's
just
really good.
when you Croydon. Nice.
Right, this is turned into a food session. uh, so, being in like China, were you raised in sort of Shanghai, or were you? Did you?
So I grew up in Guilin. It's I think it's closer to Hainan than Shanghai. It's in Guangxi, and moved around a lot because my parents they change jobs quite often. So I grew up in Nanjing, and then I studied in Europe in Switzerland, studied hotel management, and then I went to Shanghai and I worked there for 9 years, and I moved to London last year.
Now, with being in China, how does the humor sort of differ to the UK? Like, how do you interact, and how do you make each other laugh? What's, what have you noticed the key differences?
Um, I think people in China they're more wholesome and more they don't laugh at necessarily like dark joke or sad jokes. Like if I do because I used to do English comedy in Shanghai and over there you have two type of crowds. You have an international audience and local audience who a lot of them go there just to learn English basically. So I found that with Chinese audience, a lot of my jokes about like, for example, depression, or if I'm laughing at myself too hard, or dark jokes or too sexual jokes, they just don't work. They just you just have to be more wholesome and talk about your mom and your family. And yeah, uh, but people in the UK, they can take a joke like you can just say your country is going to shit, and they laugh. I mean, younger people laugh, old people they hate it. Learned it the hard way. Yeah.
What happened?
I okay. There's this weekend, right? I first performed my backyard, and then I went to this place, Chiselhurst, and I did the exact same set. And backyard, I did so well. It was probably the best gig in my life. And then Chiselhurst, I just ate shit. Because yeah, just I was on stage and talking about just UK as a country, and my opening joke was I'm wearing red because it's Chinese New Year and because I'm a communist. So like younger people, they're like, oh, okay, but older people, you just told them you're a communist, so they just hated me for 10 minutes.
Did they heckle you?
No, they were just judging you silently with their arms crossed, and yeah, it was rough.
Is the way people in general, if you're joking with your friends, if you're like say having interactions or having fun with people, is it different in China than in here? Like you can't take the piss out of each other as much. Like you
Mm,
in the
yeah,
UK, some
yeah. Um, I think the sense of humor thing is it's. I'm still surprised how important comedy is to people's day-to-day life here. It's like people find out you're a comedian, they're like, oh my God, like wow, they're truly impressed. But in China, if they find out you're a comedian, I mean, they're still interested, but then they'll follow up with a question like, uh, do you make a lot of money from it?
yeah.
And if you don't, they're not that interested anymore. Because I feel like because it's a country with a lot of more people, right? So it's very competitive. And I would say people don't joke about each other, like they don't make fun of their friends that much compared to here.
Hmm. That what you said there is very practical. The very yeah, you're doing comedy. So what? Do you make money? Are you used to me? Done.
Yeah, there's there's some celebrities in China. Like, by celebrity, I mean like they have maybe over 1 million followers or something. Not like celebrity, but people know them and they find out I do gigs with them and they're so interested. They're like, oh my God. But that's because I think another person's famous, not because they find out, oh, your comedy is good.
Do you have you ever sort of played with it and said, yes, well, if you come over tonight, you may be able to. No, that's. Have you used it to your advantage that you know these people? Like it's because it's a affiliation power, isn't it? So do you ever use it to advantage? You say, listen, you may find him funny, but I'm much funny. Come and date with me. Watch me in a comedy show. Then you do so well, and then boom.
Yeah, all the time. But not necessarily with like showing off like I know this like celebrity person. I mean I post a picture on social media and stuff, but yeah. Uh and I know what you mean, but also a lot of times it's like I just love doing comedy and I don't want to spend a night on a day with a stranger. Like just like walking and shopping and just yeah, I do comedy. Come watch a show and let's hang out.
Yeah, it's not really a big. It's not really a big thing. Like in respects, it's a bit funny how people behave to you when they find out you do comedy. It's not a big thing. It's just something you do.
Yeah,
It's just a bit of fun.
yeah.
It's what's the worst situation you've had with it? Because I know in the UK, a lot of people, if some people, if they don't like you, or if they think they're better than you, they'll say, "Tell us a joke, prove yourself to us." And I often say, "Pay me some money, come to watch a show, and you'll see."
Yeah.
And then the conversation ends.
Yeah. Do they actually come?
No,
Yeah, I find that so annoying too.
does that happen in China as well? As much like do they say go on and well, I mean, you said how much money do you get, but do you challenge them like that and say, "Do you come and watch a show and it works?"
It's an interesting question. I never thought about the equivalent of tell me a joke in China because people don't actually say that. I think people find out you're a comedian and just processing that in Chinese in my mind. Like, what would they say? Yeah, some of them come to a show, but yeah, Chinese people don't really say "tell me a joke." I'm trying to think about why, but yeah,
I have noticed that in China and in other nations, you guys are a bit more more blunt. Whilst
yeah,
in here, we will go around the issue, or we won't be quite. We won't like what you said there about. So you do comedy. How much money do you make? We won't.
hmm
We won't say that. We'll try and be polite about it. But I noticed in China's when I've communicated, like people will be more blunt in China than in here.
Are people here more polite, or do they just assume you don't get paid at all? Because I think most comedians they just do it for fun.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Well, it wasn't like that before though, but it's the fact that there's so many people doing it now,
yeah.
and that it's so mainstream and popular. But I'm guessing yeah, so many people do it, so there's not as many clubs to go around. And when you go to the real top level, let's face it, me and you, if Comedy Store want us to do 20 minutes for maybe 20, £50, we'll probably take it.
Oh yeah, I will pay.
Exactly. They know how desperate we are, and there's so many options, so they don't have to pay as much. But I'm guessing in China, because I noticed in Malaysia and in other nations, in terms of getting more paid work, they're a bit more open. And was that same sort of thing in Shanghai because there's less comedians, so there's more opportunity to get paid quite handsomely?
Oh no, I think it's
Oh, okay.
the opposite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's so you are right. There are fewer comedians in Shanghai in China, so you get more opportunities. I think you can do your own headlining show in 6 months if you're good enough, and then become like the city's top three comedians
Yeah.
because the whole city has maybe like five or 10. But yeah, so you get more opportunities, but to um like make a living out of it, it's really hard because I enjoy doing English comedy more than Chinese comedy. In Chinese comedy, you can do it for your whole time full-time job, but English comedy, the audience is still quite small. And also, if you want to do like a proper big show in a theater or charge people ticket for it, you had to submit your jokes to the government to get approved.
Ah!
Yeah, some of my jokes got shut down, which which makes sense, given the environment. But yeah, I don't think I can make it big in China.
Oh, but so yeah, but what you said there, in as the English scene is quite small, you can't. But in the main speaking Mandarin scene, there's a you can make a big living from it.
Yeah, some people do comedy for 6 months and they just quit their job and they just start like doing maybe 20 gigs a week because there's a huge demand for it.
Do they do both, like English and Chinese, or just one or the other? A lot of
Uh,
times.
I think most like comedians in China are Chinese comedians. In Shanghai, there are probably 30 comedians who do English comedy, but it's really rare to see someone who do it in both languages. And if you do, it's like something to brag about. You can like put in your uh what's that social media bilingual comedian in blah blah. Yeah, I see people do that.
But they're not as bilingual as they say, are they?
Um,
Some of them.
I mean, they can do gigs, but I just prefer to focus on one.
Is that in some ways because they get the opportunity so quickly in 6 months? Does that affect the equality? And could that have a damaging effect in China in a long term because they're getting the opportunity so quickly, but they're not quite ready for that? Or could it perhaps be the other way? It makes them better because they have that pressure.
Yeah, I think it's good for the industry, but it is very interesting because comedy in China is so new. Here, I talk to comedians who's been doing comedy for like 25 years. It's just a crazy concept to me. Like people here start watching comedy at 5, and then some of them start doing comedy when they're like 15 or something. And uh, I don't think comedy is a thing in China until maybe a few years back. It just got huge all of a sudden. So yeah, it's very new there.
I also saw something that was quite interesting with Jessie J. Like she did the Chinese singing competition, and now she's famous in China and in the UK, and she's heaping it in at the moment, isn't she?
Jesse, is American, right?
No, she's English. Jessie J, the singer. She did China's singing competition.
Let me just quickly Google. I don't think I know her. Yeah, I'm not sure. But she did you said she did comedy in China? Or? I didn't hear you,
She
sorry.
did music in China, and she
Music.
did a
Okay.
big singing competition, and now she's like a big star over in China.
Okay. Oh yeah, I'm just Googling now. 2018. She's wearing like some Chinese traditional costume.
Would she know what it means? No, I doubt she does. She's just wearing it for the sake of.
Yeah. Uh, I had to check it out afterwards, but yeah.
No, go like I sent you like when I sent you that list of questions. That was quite a lot, wasn't it? That's like a whole library full of questions.
No, it's cool. I like having something to prepare for. I think in comedy, I'm not. Yeah, just in terms of improvising, I'm not the best at it. So just yeah, it's good to know what's what we're gonna talk about.
But one of the things that I want to so with all these questions, right? One of the questions that I want to look at now is, and this is a question that every comic goes through, is like, how do you make sure that you're improving or learning from every gig and getting better? And
Um,
how do you make the most out of a bad gig?
I think with bad gigs, it's hard to not learn from them to me because you just feel so shitty. And um, but how to improve after every gig? I now try to force myself to listen to my recordings. I find it very hard to watch my own videos. Um, but yeah, I force myself to do it like every week or every month. Um, and I try to have more writing sessions just to sit down and write down the jokes and cut out some fats. Um, yeah, but I wouldn't say I have a systematic way to write. I'm not the kind of guy who's like, okay, uh, 7 to 9 p.m. I'm gonna sit down and just work on this joke and try to write something new. Usually just come to me and I write it down on my phone and I try to make it work at open mics.
Yeah, it's it's when you're bombing on stage. Like I saw a couple of instances where someone bombed, and recently, and one of the things was I've had it as well. That the worst thing I've had when I bombed on stage is when someone goes and gives advice that you haven't asked for, and
Mm,
it comes from someone that you also that isn't doing that well themselves. Like so, it, the best advice I find in comedy comes from when you ask someone when you go directly to person. But
yeah,
when it comes to someone that gives unsolicited advice, it's always the worst piece of crap. But when it comes, nearly always, but when you're bombing on stage, what goes through your head, and what is your process to try and survive it? Myself, I try and go with the flow. I do a lot of crowd work, so I try and do that, or I try and do stuff that I know that works in between.
yeah,
That's what I try and do. Or other than that, I don't know what else to do. Or I'll ask someone that I know and respect maybe to look at the video or ask for some feedback on how I
yeah.
can prepare better next time.
Um, I think that's a good way to handle that, do some crowd work, get them sort of refocused. It's a good way to do it. I'm not a big crowd work comedian, so I just kept doing my bits. And I'm just thinking about, I think I bombed like maybe twice in the UK, like bomb. There are some gigs with probably no audience, so I don't count them. But yeah, and both time I just kept doing my material, and if I get them to laugh at one time, it's like, okay, thanks, bye.
What's been like a situation that you've learned from recently on stage? Like what's a gig that's taught you the most recently that you've learned?
Um, I recently started seeing a comedy tutor. I mean, we only had like 1 or 2 sessions, but I find it very helpful. Uh, Gig wise, it's probably just that time I bombed at in front of a bunch of old people.
What would you have done differently? if you were to do that gig again?
Be uh don't open with a joke saying you're a communist. That's the first thing I would do. Second, just be more approachable and respectful. I have this comparison. I think all British people, they're very similar to an average Chinese audience. Um, they they don't want you to like make fun of something they care about. You just gotta be respectful to them. Be nice, talk about your family. Yeah, just I I I do see a lot of similarity between these two groups.
Hmm. That is interesting. My God, that's so Chinese regular Chinese people are similar to grumpy old English people.
I don't know who I'm offending there. Let's see.
No, but you have to, from what you see, you've seen that that tends to be the stuff that works better.
Yeah.
Okay. How how has what have been so that's probably what the maddest thing you've had recently, isn't it? But what's been the weirdest experience you've had in comedy that surprised you? That's like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened in comedy.
Oh, um, this is not a kind thing to say, but there's this comedian who I gig with a few times, very attractive guy, super like, tall, good looking, but just not funny at all. And I saw a job ad uh of him doing a Edinburgh show, and I was like, shit, there are people who's gonna spend 1 hour at that show. Um, yeah, but I do find it, how to say, just I'm not saying all attractive people are not good at comedy, but just in that case, just really interested me. He's probably the most attractive person I've seen in comedy here, and just really good. Yeah.
So
That is that
no,
harsh?
ooh, I don't tend to. No, yeah, it's a bit, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I can see what you mean because there are instances where I feel that. So I was at a gig recently where it was I could see what was wrong with the gig, but and it was okay, but it didn't go as well as thought. And I know what was, but I don't want to say anything because when you tell people
Yeah.
advice, it's one of the things, and they don't ask for it. It's the most annoying thing in the world. And I'm saying what you say there in terms of this is someone, yeah. With a lot of things in comedy, we you have to read between the lines as a performer, don't we? And like I bombed a couple of weeks ago at a gig, and I had my parents there and other people there. And one of the things that told me that I did badly was if I did well, my parents would say, "Oh, I did well."
Okay.
But if I did badly, they try not to mention it, and that's often a sign.
Oh,
What do you think led to that person not being self-aware of them not being funny with the audience? Was it you just seen them once and not doing well with the audience, and you could see they kind of, or have you seen them multiple times? They thought
uh,
they've had a great gig, but the audience have hated it.
I've seen them twice, and sometimes so it's like a 10-minute set.
Ah,
It's not going well, and you're there for the whole 10 minutes, and then it's just bad. I mean, and then I see a advertisement about the show, and I was just thinking, wow, this is rough. I mean, it's good that chasing what they're passionate about, but I just think it's that's weird.
okay, but what do you think made him not? So he could have been trying new material. doing a lot of experiments and it's not gone well. But if it's along the lines of someone thinking that they're better than what they are, what do you think leads to some comics not being aware of their reception?
Um, I don't really know. I think maybe not everyone is open for feedback from the audience. It's not an intentional thing. It might not even be. It might even help with people's comedy career because you just keep chasing it and you don't get this courage, which could be a good thing. Um, but yeah, just I think it's interesting because when you tell people you're a comedian and like you're doing a show in Edinburgh, um, it's like such a cool thing to talk about, and people just instantly sort of respect you. But at the same time, there are some amazing comedians. Don't get me wrong. Just like I feel like a kid in a candy shop, just being in the comedy circuit here. But there are also so many bad ones, and you can just pay money to do an Edinburgh show. And I would tell my friends in China that I toured in Edinburgh, and all of a sudden I'm like the cool guy. I'm like representing. It's just interesting to me.
Yeah, it is interesting. You said because I know there's a comic that I had on the podcast who's in Canada. He
Yeah,
couldn't get gigs in Canada before, but when he came here and mentioned that he did some good clubs, he was
yeah.
able to get spots over there because they perceived him as being a great comic. And
Mm,
like I know a comic who was on Last Comic Standing, and there was
yeah,
a short bit where he made a hacky joke, and they told him to say it,
yeah.
but he's used that TV credit, even though he didn't look good on it, to get spots in other places.
Oh,
So it's a lot of it marketing, and it's how I think it's how you're perceived, isn't it? A lot of the times, like in fights or whatever, they don't want. I'm pretty sure in some instances they are scared, but if they let people know the other fighter know that they're scared, they lost the battle. They've got to win the battle perception.
is it like when you're um not doing well on stage, you gotta come across as confident too, and maybe you win the audience back. I've been told I need to uh just come across as more confident, as owning a joke on stage. But I'm trying to find a balance between looking confident and looking likable.
It is a funny thing getting feedback though. I mean, it depends on who it is and whether they're qualified to give it. And what do you feel is your BS detector for feedback? I feel that with feedback, a lot of the times, if it's not detailed and it's not clear and it doesn't make sense, it's
Yeah.
often a load of shit.
Oh, I feel I want to talk shit again because there's this yeah, there's this comedian I know who just always give me feedback after every set. It's not good feedback. He would pull me aside and he'd be like, "This joke is not funny," and that's it. The thing is, yeah. So just to answer your question, what's my bullshit detector for feedback? Yeah, I think first, if I trust that person to give feedback, and second, is that feedback constructive? Like, does it actually
Yeah.
help? Um, but in terms of giving feedback, I feel like people in the UK they're quite reserved about giving feedback in most cases. How many times have people come to you and just give like unsolicited advice?
Um, I've had that a few times.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's rare. It's because it's a lot of it's a thing. I don't know if this is maybe in China as well, but when you go and give feedback, you better be know what you're talking about, or you better be bloody, you
mm,
better be good. You better be like, because it's you're telling people what to do, and everyone likes to live their own life.
yeah.
And I've had it about 3 or 4 times recently,
Oh
and
wow.
each of the times, what, in about a month. So each of the times it's come across. So most of the time, I'll just nod and do what I'm going to do anyway, if it doesn't make any sense. So sometimes audiences, like at the gig that I host in Wimbledon, one of the audience members tried to give feedback, but they don't understand what goes on behind the scenes. So they're not qualified. They only look at it from a certain, as you said, you don't trust them to give feedback because they only look at it from a certain way. So I just nod and go on and do my own thing anyway.
It's from an audience member or a comedian.
It was an audience member, but I was being polite and it just be nice, and I just do what I'm going to do anyway. I've had a few things from comics recently. So one of them was from one that's bombed in every gig I've seen them,
Yeah,
and I don't know. I felt, oh, you fucking hell, mate. What are you on a like? Why are you giving feedback when every time I've seen you've bombed? Do you not have any self awareness? What's going on here? And like, when you give feedback, you've got to be at least show you're doing well. This is not an ego thing, but this is, I didn't ask for feedback. I'm already, if I have and also, you don't know how the person's feeling. It's like you're stepping in them when they're not in the right mindset.
yeah. Uh, I read someone. I read something like I don't remember who said it, but there's a time and a place. Like, just after the show, just say, because maybe you want to give a friend feedback, do it tomorrow if they didn't do well, not like, on the spot. And yeah. Anyway,
But I can tell you one instance that I had recently with a comic that bombed on stage. So it was a difficult situation. It was really awkward. We've all been there. When someone bombs for a long set, it's very uncomfortable for the performers and the audience.
yeah,
I saw the audience faces; they were cringing, and they were like, "What's he doing here?"
looking at each
And
other.
yeah, and I was uncomfortable. I didn't know what to say. What I said, it was a new material night, so I said, "You know what? It takes a lot of balls to get on stage, and
Yeah,
sometimes we have a good gig, bad gig, or whatever. But well, just let's carry on. We're gonna have a good night. It's gonna be good." The comedian didn't like that. He said I was patronizing, but I was trying to say something to restore the room, like you get intense. I was trying to say, "Don't worry, it's gonna be okay." And
and you
then
can see.
yeah, I sort of, after I introduced another, I thought I'd follow him, and all I said to him was, "Look, I just mentioned some of the times I bombed, and I said, don't worry about it. I'll see you again soon. Have a good time, whatever." But I didn't try and give him any advice. I did see why he didn't do well, and the reason was because no one understood what he was saying. He
Mm.
was going very quickly, and if people don't understand what you're saying, how are they going to laugh? But I didn't say it to him. I just let him, he let him figure it out on his own. I
Is
just
it
thought I'd try and give him a pep talk.
the
If you,
British?
yeah,
Okay.
if you're in that situation and I behave like that, how would you take it?
I okay, this is just my opinion, but I
Yeah.
wish people here would give more feedback
Ah,
if it's good feedback. But I don't want people to say, just get me to the side and say that joke is not funny because you didn't make it funny. Like I know I have years, but I maybe it's just my upbringing because the Chinese people they give you unsolicited feedback all the time. I saw a Chinese friend from Shanghai. She's visiting for like 2 weeks. And the first thing she said to me, she said, "You lost some hair." Okay. So I think just I have rather thick skin, I guess. And if people are trying to help and the feedback is good, I would love to hear it. Yeah. Another thing is just a lot of times I can't put myself in the British person's shoes because I'm so new here. So a lot of my jokes, they might be very funny to me, but maybe it's not relevant at all to a average British person. So if someone tell me, you gotta change the setup or the word you used, it doesn't really make sense here, I will listen. Yeah.
yeah. So one of the things that I'm planning to do, I'm planning to do, because there's been a couple of bits that have worked quite well that I've done recently, and I haven't figured out why they've gone well. And there's a couple of bits where I've done terrible recently, where I haven't figured out why they've gone badly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit them, make them short bits. I'm going to look for people that I admire and I'm going to ask. I'll try a few of them and ask them, "Would you please be able to give me feedback?" And I'll show them the videos because I can't. In this situation, I haven't figured out why they've worked or why they didn't work.
Yeah. Who are you gonna ask?
Well, comics that are a lot higher up than me, or people that I admire, like that have been going for a few years, do the sort of comedy that I do because I'm more physical. I do
Okay.
rather than word based. So word based comic maybe wouldn't be as useful as someone who's focused on the physical side of comedy.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned what was the thing that you mentioned before? We mentioned this about before about so if you were we all have lives outside of comedy. You mentioned that you're a recruiter, but what is something that people wouldn't expect to hear about you? Like
Mm.
you, what? Like you say you're a comedian, you go up on stage, but what's something surprising about you that no one expects? Are you a bodybuilder? Are you a stripper? Are you a OnlyFans model? Are you a I don't know a dating coach?
Oh, I let me think. Just uh I'm just thinking about the crimes I committed. You know, something people don't expect from me. I don't really know. I don't really- um, I don't really know. What's yeah. I think maybe just comedy or the fact that I shave my pubic hair.
Okay, fair enough. Whatever makes you happy.
Because okay, the context is I think a lot of like Chinese people they don't do that at all, like at all. And yeah, when I if you go to like a Chinese sauna, sometimes they don't put a towel and you can just see everything. Like no one fucking play on that. So yeah, I mean, and I hesitated because I don't think it's you know, in the UK, it's probably not that special. But if you ask me in China, I'm like, yeah, I'm special like that. Just I do that.
Now- Are you sure you want to put that keep that in?
It's up to you.
Oh,
There's no um there's no dirty words there. I don't think so.
what,
Pubic hair.
what, now we mentioned a bit about before about there's a lot of things that you mentioned something in Britain that you didn't like, but what's a stupid thing you notice about people in Britain that doesn't make you sense for someone being in China?
Oh, like in life or in comedy?
In both.
I just I don't think it's stupid, but I find it weird that when British people go out, they never eat. Like every Thursday, I mean, most Thursdays we'll go out with, you know, as a team, just my colleagues, and they just start drinking at 4, and there's no food. They don't stop by a restaurant. They don't like order stuff. Just beer and beer and beer, and yeah, people have no respect for food here.
Yeah, they need the food to lighten the load of the alcohol.
Yeah, or just like some chips in the bar and just yeah.
And what what is the one thing, if you were to give any advice on comedy or anything that's helped you the most when you started, what would you tell a new comic now?
Um, wow, I this is like just is this giving unsolicited advice?
It
Because I
is, isn't it?
I don't know
No,
this imaginary comic. I just be
I
like,
don't know.
hey,
But what's the biggest thing you've learned from doing comedy that you wish you'd known earlier?
oh, that we are entertainers. Because I think at first I just saw this as it's my art and I want to do it my way. And there are a few times that I upset some people. So so it is, yeah, one thing I learned is that you gotta find a way to express your art and make it like let me organize my words. You gotta find balance between being a entertainer and an artist. Just you can't just uh be you, but you don't want to be a hack and just tell them what they want to hear as well. When I started in Shanghai, some of my jokes were just bad, like borderline racist. And at the time, I thought it was okay because I'm Chinese. I'm not a straight white male. But I learned it after a few gigs that why do you go on stage, say those stuff, and make people upset, people who come to see a comedy show, just so you can express your ideas. But that's one thing. Yeah.
And for anyone that's listening right now, how do they find out about you? Do they find out about you on WhatsApp, on Telegram, on Weibo, on Instagram, on Threads? Do they find out about you on the Skyline? Do they find out about you on Brighton Pier? Where do they find out about you?
Who's listening right now?
I've got about 100 downloads, well, around 100 downloads an episode. So it's across all over the place.
Oh,
But
okay, but it's not live right now.
no,
Oh, okay. Um, but should I answer that question?
yeah.
But I don't know who's downloading your podcast.
Oh, mostly just comedians.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's probably some comedian I gig with, trying to see what we're talking about, or maybe just your followers trying to see what's this guy's deal? What's about China?
So where do they find out about you? Instagram, social media? What are your social media handles? And like, do you have a website?
Oh yeah, yeah. So Instagram, my handle is Alvin Comedy. Um, I don't really use Twitter or TikTok. Yeah, so just Instagram.
Okay. So you found out about Alvin. You know where to go. He lives in Islington.
N7? No.
But you know where to go. Hope you guys have enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Next episode, I think, is going to be with the wonderful Wilson Milton, who's been doing comedy for 12 years. So I'll speak to you guys soon. And then week after that, I think we've got a clown podcast organizer called Barnaby King. So we've got a lot of interesting guests, and
Cool.
I'll speak to you guys later. Yeah.